Welcome everybody to another episode of HomeKit Insider. You have, as always, me, Andrew O'Hara, and here not with me today is Steven Robles. He is out doing things that's not being on the podcast. I hear he's trying to set the world record on a finger skateboard for most, that's the record. And I'm rooting for him over here by myself in the void. As we cover this week's news, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. There is some news to cover, we have some hands-on to do, and a couple reviews. So you guys are stuck with me. Let's dive into everything with, honestly, some of the biggest news of the week for HomeKit users. And that is that Eve has been acquired. Yet this was kind of a big shock to a lot of people. A lot of people are concerned at what this means for the future of the Eve brand and accessories. But basically, the automation giant ABB has acquired Eve Systems. So Eve was actually part of like Elgato. There was like the Elgato company, and there was like some peripherals for computers. There was like stuff for creators like key lights and backdrops and such. There was Thunderbolt docks, so those peripherals, and then there was the smart home side, which was all of the Eve products. The Eve products were spun off, and the rest was sold to Corsair. So Eve has been its own company for years now, and now it has been acquired by ABB. So from what this sounds like, ABB is based in Switzerland. They're going to continue to let Eve to operate independently, still staying in Germany. Now, the long-term goal, I'm sure, is to use Eve's technology and knowledge on Thread and Matter, because Eve is one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one, in that space, and bring that into ABB's product lines. So the question just kind of remains, like, what does that mean for Eve in a few years? Right now, Eve is staying independent, but personally, it worries me. ABB does not have, or would not seem to have the affinity towards Apple Home, or any of the stuff that kind of Eve has done before now. I think ABB is just buying them because Eve has a ton of knowledge and experience with Thread and Matter. They have probably the largest number of Matter devices out there right now. They have a ton of Thread devices out there. They're a great company to buy up when you're this massive, company that needs to invest in these emerging standards. So I think it makes sense for ABB, but it certainly makes me nervous on an Apple Home front and what the future of Eve actually looks like. So we will have to see how that evolves, but that is some of the biggest news for HomeKit users this week. Other news in the smart home space, Hugh has reintroduced its light guides. If you guys remember, they actually pooled their light guide bulbs. These are like the big ones that would hang down, their pendant lights. They came in different colors like globe and something else. But they were discontinued or pooled because they had problems with manufacturing. And now they've brought them back quietly. I just got an email in my personal inbox. It was like, hey, you can buy this now. But one of the bulbs has returned, which is the ellipse shape, which is kind of like not a perfect circle. It's an ellipse. It's kind of what it sounds like. They do sell an additional cord that you can use that will cover the base of the bulb. It looks really nice. You can attach them to like their track lighting and everything. A very nice setup, but Hue has brought back their light guide products, at least in one of the shapes. I don't believe we covered this last week, but we have a new Latch smart lock coming to market from HOLOMARQ. This is a thread lock, thread-enabled lock for inside of your house, and I might have one sitting here. No, I'm not going to show it to you yet. If you're watching on video, we're going to hold off on that, and we're going to go do a little bit of a hands-on a little bit further in this episode. Continuing with the news for the week, NOMAD, our friends at NOMAD, have a couple new products for us. This is the base and stand. These are two MagSafe compatible charging stands, and they look really nice. They basically taken their MagSafe certified ones and dropped the MagSafe certification for savings of like $30 for each charger. Now, when they're dropping that MagSafe certification, they are going down to 7.5 watts versus 15. So these are slower chargers, but they still will work with your iPhone. They will still hold them in place. One is a vertical stand, one is a flat stand, or a base station, whatever you want to call it. But two different kind of form factors going on. They look great, they feel great. I do have a hands-up review of these if you want to get a little bit more deeper into detail. And yes, they do both work, or at least the stand will work with the new standby mode coming to iOS 17, which is now something that we're going to be checking and mentioning, at least in all these MagSafe compatible charger and stands that have been launching. So if you've paid attention to non-smart home news, you have probably seen the wildfires that have been racing across Canada. And as a result of that, there has been so much damage and everything else. But here in the U.S., we're kind of dealing with all of the smoke and air pollution that's coming from these wildfires. And people have been kind of scrambling for options. So we have heard from a few different companies that have offered discounts on their air purifiers. So I don't want this to seem like I'm encouraging people to buy things because a catastrophe is happening, but they have been putting on discounts. And even right now, I don't even know if these discounts are still active by the time that you guys are listening to this podcast. But the Purell air purifier, this one's thread enabled. This guy, it has a 10% off coupon on its Amazon page, dropping it down to $135, its lowest price point. smartmi P1, this one has also been knocked down, so lowest price in history down to $105 with an on-page coupon, I believe. And there's like a 10% off coupon on top of that, so $40 off, $39 off, plus a 10% off coupon. They do mention the coupon code CNTBNHX8. That again is CNTBNHX8. As an additional coupon that'll give you 10% off the product. So if you guys have been in the market, or if you are in one of the more northeastern states that have been dealing with this smog and air pollution, and you want to do something to help yourself, protect yourself and your home and everything, it's not a bad time to pick up an air purifier. We also saw some from Blue Air just launching. I'm currently testing their new ones that are actually app-enabled now. I've used a Blue Air purifier for years, and now they have these nice app-enabled ones that have new designs. So I'm very excited to talk about that in the future, even if it isn't HomeKit. But again, purifiers. These have always been a highly recommended item, and now kind of dealing with these wildfires and air pollution, it's a better time than ever to consider picking one up. So that covers the news for the week. We have 2 reviews and a hands-on coming. But first, we got to thank our sponsor, our first sponsor for this episode of HomeKit Insider, and that is Nom Nom, which I am excited that Steven is not here because I am excited to say Nom Nom as many times as possible throughout this ad read. But you know, if you've listened to this podcast, you know that my wife and I love our pets. We have so many of them. We have bunnies, we have cats, and of course we have dogs. And as Nom Nom says, your pet is a member of the family. Don't feed them like they're a dog in the house. Give them Nom Nom. So Nom Nom delivers fresh dog food with every portion personalized to your dog's needs, so you can bring out their best. Nom Nom is made with real, whole food, so you can see and recognize without any additives or fillers that contribute to bloating and low energy. That's because Nom Nom uses the latest science and insights to make real, good food for dogs. Their nutrient-packed recipes are crafted by board-certified veterinary nutritionists, made fresh and shipped free to your door. Nom Nom's already delivered over 40 million meals to good dogs like yours, inspiring millions of clean bowls and tail wags. So again, I love our dogs, and those little kibble bits, they can't taste good. It just looks like burnt kind of mush. I love cooking everything in our home. We make food for our baby. We take fresh stuff out to our chickens. The bunnies are eating fresh stuff. We're growing kale and everything in our basement on our rise garden. Why would we give the worst food to our dogs that are always by our side, that we sleep with every day? No. You need to upgrade your food for your dog. It's about time. Try out Nom Nom. You can actually see what you're feeding your dog. It's absolutely crazy. So go right now for 50% off your no-risk 2-week trial at trynomnom.com/HomeKit. Spelled trynom.com/HomeKit for 50% off. trynom.com/HomeKit. Actually, I don't even know if I read that thing right. So make sure you guys got that URL correctly. So trynom.com. No 2 noms, just the 1 nom. trynom.com/HomeKit. So trynom.com/HomeKit for 50% off that 2-week trial. Thanks again to Nom Nom for sponsoring this episode of HomeKit Insider. So moving on, our first review of this episode is the all-new, newly available OMNI-ECOVACS Deebot T20 Omni. So this is smart home vacuum cleaner. These are the ones that just launched. They still have a $100 off discount for new buyers that is good until the end of the month. So if you are interested, keep that in mind. So I'll give you the rundown and how my experience has been so far over the last few weeks testing this thing out. So very easy to set up. There actually is a little switch on the robot itself. So I plugged in the docking station, opened up the little magnetic lid on the robot, turned it on, and it went ahead and kind of paired with the Wi-Fi and went through that whole process, onboarded it into the ECOVACS Home app. Then left it in the docking station for it to charge up. And once you've kind of gone through that setup process, it's going to do a quick scan of your house. It's going to use the onboard scanners to run around your house as fast as it can, measuring every room, and then pulling it all into the app. This was really fast. I mean, really fast compared to some of the other vacuum cleaners that I have tested. It took maybe 5 minutes to cover our entire home. So that's just your initial scan, and then all of a sudden, boom, pops up in your app. It'll break everything into rooms in your house. It's really nicely done. I've never had a problem with the ECOVACS app with any of the other ECOVACS robots that I have tested out. So all that is kind of standard for how ECOVACS stuff works. This one has an empty wash fill dry docking station, so it's more on the tall side than some of the others, and everything is nicely contained on the inside. You don't really see any of the bins or anything. It's just this one kind of solid piece. It's a familiar design if you've seen the other Deebot robots. So if you open up the top, you'll have a dirty water bucket and a clean water bucket. The buckets are a little tall, I will say, so like I couldn't fill them inside of like my bathroom sink. I had to use the kitchen sink because it's a much taller sink for them to fit in. So just keep that in mind as you're using these things. Then the dirty wash, or the dirty water, is going to be used when it's cleaning the mop. So it'll go out, clean your house, come back, dock itself. Those little brushes on the bottom are going to be dirty from mopping. It's going to run a bunch of clean water through there. They're going to scrub themselves on this kind of like Brillo-y pad bottom, and then it's going to filter or siphon all that water out into the dirty water tank, which you can then promptly throw away. Everything is nicely sealed up, so I didn't notice any smells or anything bad coming from it that way. There is a bag inside on the front, so it'll suck out all of the stuff from the dustbin, so you don't have to worry about that. And once it's done cleaning the mop heads, it'll go ahead and blow warm air on them to help dry them and prevent bacteria growth and additional smells. These still are just Velcroed on there, or hook and latch on there, so you can just pull them off and throw them in the wash like once a month or so for a more deep clean. These things have been really nice, but what's new about the new T20 Omni is this is the first one that has the raising and lowering of the mop heads. So as it goes about your house, before this, it would skip all of your carpets and rugs, and it would just go about. And then if you wanted to clean those, you had to remove the mop heads and then run it again. So this takes care of that. You do not have to remove them. You can just let it go about its business. And whenever it encounters a carpet or a rug, it'll lift it up and prevent them from getting dirty and tracking the mop water onto your carpets. So in my experience, this has worked very well. It's going to go through all sorts of stuff in my house, all of the rugs and carpets. It does detect right away, and it does lift up, and it has worked great in that regard. But also in our baby's room, we have a more plush carpet, like it's very soft, and there it was just like, it seemed like the carpet was just slightly too high. It wasn't a shag carpet anyway, it looked like a regular carpet. Go look at the review, you can see photos, but it looks like a regular carpet, and the mops were just skimming the top of the carpet, which meant if you would go in there like right after a mop, it would feel slightly damp. So if you are going and doing a really gross clean and then it goes on the carpet, it could be spreading a little bit of stuff there, which isn't ideal, but it just depends on the room, and the mops are still super easy to pull off and remove if you ever do need to. So like I wouldn't mind it for the rugs in the house, but if I was doing like the rooms, I would still probably pull these off, especially if you have a very plush carpet in there. It's very, the other thing with the mops, they're using hot water. So it's heated to 131 degrees Fahrenheit, which is great because hot water is going to clean better than cold water. So as it's scrubbing dirt and debris off of your floor, that water is actually warm, which is a really neat effect. And I think between the rotating mops and the hot water, this is one of the best mopping vacuums that I have tried. For vacuuming, it has 6,000 pascals of suction. There's a single rubber roller on there. It was still catching some hair in there between my wife and our long-haired dog. There was long hair that would still get trapped up in this, so I did have to, after a couple weeks, use the included tool to remove any of the hair that had collected on there, but that's kind of pretty typical. That's just what things are going to be. Suction worked really well, seemed to get most of the dust out of everywhere. We have heard that kind of like once you get past a certain point, there's not much additional cleaning that it does, and it can get fairly loud once it's at that really high level, but I think it just does an excellent job of cleaning overall, especially maintaining that home. Now, of course, there is no direct integration with HomeKit or Matter at this point, but this does support Siri shortcuts, so you can program this to work with voice controls. You can set it up to start, to pause, to clean a specific area, and just returning to the dock. You do have to set these up all manually, so you have to go into the app and create all these, and you have to do it for each person in your house in their individual shortcuts app, but it is doable and works with voice control. Otherwise, you can use the onboard assistant, which I felt was just okay. It's nice because you can just tell it certain rooms, so you don't have to pre-program anything, so all of that's handy and everyone can just use it right away. But I also would try to talk to Yiko and then it wouldn't respond, or I couldn't hear, and then I had to turn up the volume, and then it was like too loud when I'm in the room. I don't know. I just wish the Siri or the HomeKit integration was a bit better. So that is the new T20 Omni. This thing, I think, retails for $1,100, but right now it's $100 off. Maybe it's $1,200 and it's $100 off to $1,100, but it's right around that price point, right around $1,000 with that $100 discount good until the end of the month. So check out the link for that in the show notes or the description. We do have a quick hands-on to talk about, and that is that HOLOMARQ smart lock. So this is a latch-based lock, so for inside of your house, not for like your front door, anywhere where you just have a knob and a latch that you want to be able to lock. So this is what it looks like if you guys are watching it on the video. You can see the latch there, and then we have two essentially door knobs. They're slightly rounded squares. One side has the keyhole and a number pad that you can use. The other side just has like a little screw on the end. The side with the screw feels a little plasticky. It is plastic, whereas the one with the number pad, this is all metal, so this one feels a bit nicer. You can just turn them to open the door like you normally would, but it also has HomeKit support, so you can just use Siri to lock and unlock the door. You can check the status from the Home app, and you can share access, everything you would with any standard HomeKit lock. All of that works really nice. It's also using Thread, which I love, so Thread-based smart lock here. Not much else to tell you right now until I set this thing up and try it out, but I'm excited for a new interior lock. So if you have, maybe an office that you want to protect, maybe a bedroom that you want to keep off limits, anything like that you can protect and use HomeKit with the new HOLOMARQ Thread-enabled HomeKit latch lock. Before moving on to our last review of the episode, the new Aqara U100 smart lock. Lots to talk about there. Gotta thank our second sponsor for this episode, Kolide. I know Steven is bummed he is not here for another Kolide ad read because he would get to learn even more about Okta. So Kolide has some big news. If you're an Okta user, they can get your entire fleet to 100% compliance. But how are they going to do it? Well, if a device isn't compliant, the user simply can't log into your cloud apps until they fix the problem. It's that easy. Kolide patches one of the major holes in zero trust architecture, device compliance. Without Kolide, IT struggles to solve basic problems like keeping everyone's OS and browser up to date. Unsecured devices are logging into your company's apps because there's nothing there to stop them. Kolide is the only device trust solution that enforces compliance as part of authentication, and it's built to work seamlessly with Okta. The moment Kolide's agent detects a problem, it alerts the user and gives them instructions to fix it. If they don't fix the problem within a set time, they're blocked. Kolide's method means fewer support tickets, less frustration, and most importantly, 100% fleet compliance. Visit kolide.com/HomeKit to learn more or book a demo. That's KOLIDE.com/HomeKit to book a demo. Thanks again to Kolide for sponsoring this episode. So let's get into it. The Aqara U100 smart lock. This thing is a beast of a smart lock. One of its flagship features is HomeKey, but it may not even matter. So let's start off. This is a very square, rectangular, boxy looking lock. It's really easy to install, though they include a lot of parts into the box, and it looks a little bit daunting, but seriously, it only took me like 2 minutes to install this thing, so very easy to do, especially if you're replacing like an existing deadbolt that was already on your door. So there are multiple ways to get into this lock as far as authentication goes, which is probably one of its biggest selling points versus other ones on the market. So you can use fingerprint authentication, just touch your fingerprint to the front, boom, you're in. There's a passcode, so you can enter your passcode, and they even allow you to kind of obfuscate your passcode by entering up to 20 digits beforehand and then your passcode, so any onlookers won't exactly know where your passcode is or what your passcode is in that entire process. You can just use a key. There's a little door that slides down. You have access to a key, put in a physical key. You can use Apple HomeKey. You can use an NFC key card that they've included, or you have app control, whether it's through Aqara, through the Home app, through Siri, anything like that, you can use to lock and unlock this lock. So my biggest problem with this is a little bit about the design and the battery cover. So the battery cover just snaps into place, and they include a little plastic spudger. This reminds me back in like high school when I was fixing and building iPods. I would use these little plastic spudgers to gently remove the front like acrylic of an iPod like Classic or Nano from the metal, the stainless steel polished back. So you'd go on the side and pull it out, and it would release these clips, and you could easily remove the front of the iPod, where you could upgrade the storage, switch it to flash storage, all sorts of things like that, put in like colored front plates. I did all sorts of things. But you use these little kind of disposable spudgers to pry things free. And that's what they've included here that's required to access the battery compartment. Frankly, it's kind of dumb in my opinion, and it's really annoying. So it was actually difficult for me to kind of get the compartment open in the first place, and the spudger broke immediately. So once you break your initial spudger that they include in the box, you know, what are your other options? I'm sure a lot of people would just turn to a flathead screwdriver, but the body of this is plastic, and I feel like I'm just going to scratch the heck out of this thing if I try to open it up with a screwdriver. So I tried a few different things. I ended up using for guys out there, a metal collar, I don't know what they're called. The little pieces that you stick into the points of your collar so they stay straight, and like they're usually like plastic, but I have a set of like metal ones that'll retrofit into shirts. So I used one of those because it was long and like the corners were like kind of rounded, so it was a little bit more smooth than a flathead screwdriver. But I use that to pry it open, and I just think that's a terrible way to access the batteries in there, and it just worries me switching that each and every time. So that was my biggest problem with it. Everything else is working perfectly as advertised. There's automated ways to lock and unlock this thing based on location. HomeKey works just as it should, so you can just walk up to it, tap it with your Apple Watch, and you're in. You can also do the same thing with your iPhone. It's just passing your credentials over NFC. But honestly, a lot of times I fell back just using the fingerprint sensor. Like, HomeKit's nice, but it's just easy just to tap with your finger and you're in that way. I don't even have to hold up my phone or my watch. I can just touch it. So I think it's going to depend on the user, but the fingerprint reader is, you know, a game changer. I think what I would really like, though, is with HomeKey, you could share that key. It's, you know, stored in your wallet, and you could share it with others. That's the thing, right? Like, I just want to be able to share it with a neighbor or with my parents or whoever needs to come in, but I don't have their fingerprint on hand. And it's more elegant than choosing or them creating a passcode. So I think HomeKey is still very nice, especially for guest access. I just wish Apple would ever enable HomeKey sharing. Even with iOS 17 beta, it is still not a feature. I don't know where it is. Apple had promised it updates ago, and it's still not here. But hopefully it will actually deliver at some point, and then I think it'll be more usable. Through the Home app, of course, you have HomeKey setup that you can do. You can lock and unlock, as well as set up some basic automations. And through the Home app, you can set up the passcodes for guests. All of that is baked into the Home app. This thing does say it works with Matter, but it's not Matter enabled by itself. It's only Matter enabled when you pair it with a compatible Aqara Smart Hub. So if you have one of those around, you can connect it to that and then work through Matter. But even then, that's still in a fickle state at the moment because certain, ecosystems don't support hubs, and I'm still waiting for my Google Home here to get the beta update to enable Matter support. So things are a little bit up there. So I'm sure none of you are clamoring for Matter at the moment, but it's nice to know that if you want to go the Matter route, it is an option. So that is it. Thank you for hanging out with me today. No Steven, just me. I tried not to give you too many bad jokes that Steven can pretend to laugh at. But thank you all for joining me. Check out all the links for the news, new product launches, reviews that we covered. All of it is in the show notes or the YouTube description. Be sure to go and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we will happily give you a shout out at the top of the next episode. Otherwise, we have another episode coming up next week with so much more news and exciting HomeKit conversations to have with you. Thank you again for sticking with us, and we'll see you on the next episode.